This is a CBS News Pittsburgh special presentation.
Hi, I'm John Delano, Money and Politics Editor, KDKA Television, CBS Pittsburgh. And our very, very special guest is the governor-elect of Pennsylvania, almost former Attorney General Josh Shapiro. I guess you got a few weeks left to be Attorney General, don't you, Governor-elect?
I do. John, it's good to be with you. Thank you. And glad you're feeling better.
Well, thank you. And it's good to have you on. I think this is your first television interview with a Pennsylvania TV station, and we're delighted to have the chance to talk to you. So I've got a number of questions, so let's just dive right in. You won this election statewide by a tremendous margin. And many folks say you've got a mandate to lead us in Pennsylvania. So, Governor, what exactly is that mandate that you were just given?
Look, I'm incredibly proud of the election results and the bipartisan support that we've received in this campaign. And the fact that we were able to win counties that Democrats historically haven't, from Beaver to Cumberland to Berks to Luzerne and other places in between. And I think the clear mandate that we have is to bring people together, to actually get things done, to reject extremism and take down the temperature and solve people's problems. That's what I've done throughout my career, and that's what I'll do as governor. Pennsylvanians know me. Look, this ain't my first rodeo, John. I've won 3 statewide elections, and in each one set a record for most votes ever received. And so we have shown an ability to bring people together when it comes time for elections and when it comes time for governing. And now as governor, that's exactly what I'll do, bring people together to solve problems. And that's my mandate.
Well, let me ask you to be a little more specific. It's great to bring people together. It's great to solve problems. But what specifically are the problems that you'd like to see solved in your first year as governor?
Look, I'm going to keep focusing on the issues I talked about every day in the campaign, protecting people's fundamental freedoms, making sure every child gets a quality education, no matter their zip code, and doing some specific things in education that improve outcomes, from doing away with standardized testing to bringing VOTEC back to our classrooms, making sure we have mental health counselors in our schools. We also need to make sure we have safe communities. People have a right to be safe and feel safe. We're going to hire more police in Pennsylvania, and we need to grow our economy in making sure we raise wages, that we plant some flags again and show in Pennsylvania that we can dominate the other states when it comes to economic growth, whether it's around robotics or biotech or energy. I think we're poised for some really significant advancements here in Pennsylvania, and I'm excited to be the leader at this time.
Can you be both a pro-business and pro-union governor at the same time?
Of course, it's not mutually exclusive. Listen, pro-business means creating more opportunity for workers and putting more product out there and more services out there. We should not look at the success of business requiring workers to do worse. The bottom line is the better workers do, the better the business is going to perform. And so I want to make sure people who want to join a union have the opportunity to do that. I've always been supportive of unions as Attorney General, and I certainly will continue to be as governor. And it is not mutually exclusive to suggest that you can't have both. I think you can have both.
A lot of folks worry. We haven't had a governor from Western Pennsylvania, I guess, since Tom Ridge. And we know that you're in Eastern Pennsylvania. But you did spend a lot of time in Western Pennsylvania, and you made your announcement for governor here in Pittsburgh, exactly. I believe. So how important is Western Pennsylvania, number one, to your win, and number two, to where you're going to head us in governing?
Look, as Attorney General, I've been in Western Pennsylvania, multiple times every week, and I'm a proud Pitt dad, so I get out there and see my kid out there a lot. And it is just a place that has adopted me and supported me, in a place where I have such fondness toward, and where I've delivered for, whether it was negotiating the Highmark UPMC issue or making sure that our workers in Western Pennsylvania were protected. Bottom line is I've been there for Western PA, and they've been there for me. And if you look at the election results, it's not just in Allegheny County where we had a terrific night, but we won Beaver County. We outperformed every other Democrat in Washington and Greene, and communities that, to be honest with you, have been forgotten for too long. So these are communities that matter a lot to me. It's why I chose to launch my campaign for governor in Western Pennsylvania. It's why I chose to pick a running mate, Austin Davis, from Western Pennsylvania. And it's why you'll see me there every week, continuing to fight for the good people of Western Pennsylvania.
State Senator Mastriano did ultimately, I guess yesterday, send out a letter of concession. Did he ever call you?
No, but it doesn't matter. I mean, as I've said before, the people pick the winner, not him. So I could care less if he calls me. What I'm focused on is looking forward, not looking back. Looking forward to, building a strong transition team that's going to put us in the strongest possible position to govern on day one, and then making sure that our agenda is in a position where we can get these things done for the good people of Pennsylvania.
He did in his statement make one point that I think a lot of folks in Pennsylvania would agree with, and that has to do, of course, with our elections. He wrote, Pennsylvania is in great need of election reform. He notes, we can and must do better to make our elections more quickly decided. And frankly, you have no better place to turn than Allegheny County, for example, of an election system that seems to work and seems to get all the ballots counted at the same time. We know part of the problem is the Republican legislature with respect to certain reforms. But what can you do to make Pennsylvania not the last state to decide elections, but the first?
First off, we have to stop spewing nonsensical conspiracy theories the way he and others do. And we need to acknowledge the fact that we had a free and fair, safe and secure election in 2020 and in 2021 and again in 2022, an election where he resoundingly lost in large measure because of those conspiracy theories. Now, what can we do going forward? We can do something that he and many of his colleagues in the Senate refused to do, and that is allow county commissioners or county election officials to pre-canvass ballots, something that Republican and Democratic county commissioners alike agree with. And that would allow these election officials to begin processing mail-in ballots prior to election day, which I should note is done in other Republican and Democratic states from Florida, North Carolina, Ohio, Texas, and other places. And the idea there is not to pre-count them, but to pre-canvass them, to correct any errors, to get the ballots ready so they can be processed right away and we can get election results quickly. The idea here, yes, is to speed up the process, but the most important thing we need to do is to have an accurate count. To do that, I'm prepared to work with the legislature on bipartisan, common sense ideas like pre-canvass. I'll be announcing soon a pro-democracy Secretary of State. I'll be working to make sure we protect vote by mail and expand opportunities for people to participate in our democracy, like having automatic voter registration for legal eligible voters. I think there's a lot of things we can do on a bipartisan basis, but it starts by working in reality, not working in conspiracy theories the way he and others have done.
As you know, it has often seemed as if Governor Wolf and the legislature, a Republican-controlled legislature, have been at odds, veto after veto after veto, posturing after posturing, perhaps even on both sides. I think people do want to see the governor and the legislature work together. You happened to come out of the legislature years ago, so you know something about how that system works. Can we expect things to be different, even if the Republicans maintain control of the General Assembly? I know that's not clear yet with respect to the State House, but can we expect the governing style to be different in a Shapiro administration?
Yes, there'll be meaningful engagement. There'll be bipartisan dialogue. There'll be common ground found. Look, I did come from the legislature, albeit it's been over a decade since I've been there, but my running mate is in the legislature right now. We both understand how important it is to work with the legislature. And I recognize, John, I'm not going to get everything done that I want, and they're not going to get everything done that they want. But this is what the good people of Pennsylvania want. They want us to come together and compromise. Compromise is not a bad thing. And just because I may disagree with a particular idea of someone, from across the aisle, doesn't mean that all of their ideas are bad, right? I think we've had this sort of zero-sum game mentality for too long in Harrisburg and in Washington as well. We got to get away from that and just recognize that I don't corner the market on every good idea, neither do they, and we can come together and find that common ground. So I think you'll see a lot more engagement. You'll see a legislative affairs office, within the governor's office that engages more. You're going to see my administration be bipartisan. And so you're just going to see a different approach to working with the legislature. Now, I want them to be around the table, but, with participation comes responsibility, in the sense that they get to be around the table, but then they have to be constructive and they have to work toward, finding that common ground as well. So there'll be some responsibility on their part as well to find this common ground and to help us move forward collectively.
Former President Trump is announcing his candidacy for re-election or election to a second term as president. Is that good news or bad news for Democrats in Pennsylvania?
Look, I don't know, John, you're the pundit. You'll figure that out. But I think what's clear from the results last Tuesday is that Pennsylvanians rejected extremism. They rejected chaos. They rejected people who spew dangerous conspiracy theories. So I don't think that bodes well for the former president, who's obviously put together a significant string of losses here. But, I'm going to not focus on him or the national politics. I'm going to focus now on my job. And that is to prepare myself to be the best governor I can be for the good people of Pennsylvania.
I just saw this press release from your office this morning, and I wanted to ask you about it, in which you've announced a settlement with Walmart over opioid epidemic allegations. And specifically, I gather there's going to be $120 million coming to Pennsylvania as part of this settlement. Could you explain to us why this is important and exactly who's going to get this $120 million for Walmart's alleged opioid abuses?
John, probably 4 or 5 years ago, I spoke to you on camera about how I was going to go after the opioid companies for the damage that they inflicted on Pennsylvanians, the way these opioid companies manufactured the crisis that's claiming the lives of 14 Pennsylvanians every single day. And look, we've arrested 8,200 drug dealers in our communities during my time as Attorney General, but I know those drug dealers didn't manufacture the crisis. The executives in the pharmaceutical companies and the pharmacies and the distributing companies, they're the ones who did. And so we've had a series of investigations, some of which Pennsylvania has led, that have resulted in historic settlements that cumulatively have brought well over $1 billion back to Pennsylvania in dollars that can only be used for treatment, right? They can't be used to fill potholes. That's important, but not with this money. But treatment, because we understand drug addiction is a disease, not a crime. And so this is yet another settlement on top of the others we've already announced that is going to contribute to the resources available to help those who are battling the disease of addiction. Walmart is the most recent, but there will be more coming in the coming months.
Well, there was a suggestion in your press release that some of these monies might actually come into local communities. Is that through the healthcare systems? How does that work?
We established a formula where about 85 cents of every dollar of these settlements, and again, it's over $1 billion now, flow through local communities as opposed to going to Harrisburg and then having to make their way through the state budget. And the idea behind that, when I negotiated this deal, was that these local governments, right, your county governments, for example, that's where the rubber meets the road. They're the ones providing the treatment services in your community. And so it made sense that the lion's share of that money went through the local government. They can move more quickly. They're more nimble. They're where the rubber meets the road, and they get the dollars out to those who are most in need. So, for example, in Allegheny County, under Rich Fitzgerald's leadership and his county government, they're doing an excellent job, I think, of getting the resources out there and getting the help to those who need it most. And that's why we're putting the dollars through county government in Allegheny County as opposed to just simply driving it all out from Harrisburg.
Well, Governor-elect Josh Shapiro, who in, I think, just 2 months takes the oath of office. I'm sure there's a lot of work ahead between now and then, but thank you, sir, very much for spending time with us today. I really do appreciate it.
Good to be with you, John. Thank you so much.